गिरिधारी शिशि राधा विनोद बिहारी जू की जाय। श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन जू की जाय। नित्यानंद विष्णु विष्णुपाद शुतर शुतस्मार भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोसाई महाराज श्री गुरुदेव की जय। नित्यानंद विष्णु विष्णुपाद शुतर शुतस्मार भक्ति वेदांत पावन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्यानंद विष्णु विष्णुपाद शुतर शुतस्मार भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्यानंद विष्णु विष्णुपाद शुतर शुतस्मार भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नित्यानंद विष्णु विष्णुपाद शुतर शुतस्मार भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्यानंद विष्णु महाभागवत शुल्कोक्षर बाबूजी महाराज की जय। नित्यानंद विश्व शुद्ध सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नित्यानंद विष्णु वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबूजी महाराज की जय। श्री रूपानु गौड़िया गुरु वर्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास गुनाथ शारद गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर पार्षद वृंद की जय। नाम जय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौरमंडल ब्रजमंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री मोहन देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योग माय की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। जय श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। जय श्री श्री यशोदा दामोदर की जय। श्री राधा दामोदर की जय। श्री दामोदर व्रत कार्तिक व्रत नियम सेवा की जय। उर्ज व्रत की जय। उर्जेश्वरी रासेश्वरी शिव शिवानुनंदिनी श्रीमती राधा ठाकुरानी की जय। श्री दीपावली तिथि की जय। जय श्री श्री दाम बंधन निबंधनम लीला की जय। जय श्री यमल-अर्जुन-मोचनम की जय। जय श्री जीव गोस्वामीपाद की जय। श्री गोपाल-campūḥ की जय। जय श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्रीनिताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। गुरुवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकाय तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तद्भक्ताय नमो नमः। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। Let's recite the Pranam mantra for the Jīva Goswami. Let me just put that on the screen 1 second. Okay, because we're going to read from his Gopāla-campūḥ today. So, Śrī Rūpa, wait, let me make it bigger. Śrī Rūpa Charanadvandva Raginam Vrajavasinam Śrī Jīvam Satatam Vande Mandeshwanandadayinam. Śrī Jīva Goswami is devoted to the 2 lotus feet of Śrīla Rupa Goswami, and he is a resident of Braj. I forever offer prayers to Śrī Jīva Goswami, who brings joy to the hearts of the ignorant with his conclusive illuminations on the Absolute. Shri Chaitanya Manobhisham Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरतिषे नमः अङ्गश्यामलिमच्छटाभिरभितो मन्दीकृतेन्दीवरम् जाड्यां जागुडरोचिषं विदधतां पट्टाम्बरस्य श्रिया बृन्दारण्यविलासिनां हृदिलसर दामाभिरामोदरम् राधास्कन्दनिवेशितो ज्वलभुजां ध्यायेम दामोदरम् भजश्री भक्त्या विहीन तवायवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय देवी त्वां नायमां शरणन्तिकम् भक्त्या विहीना अपराधलक्षा क्षिप्ताश्रकामादितराङ्गमध्ये कृपामयि त्वं शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दम् भज श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासरे गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा धन्यवाद प्रणाम सुंदरी हरि प्रभु भवतारिणी माता जी नीताय मुकेश जी Champak Mataji, Vidyalala Sadidi, and all the other devotees watching now. You're at comment, I'll see your name. I'm guessing Indira Mataji and Raseshwari Mataji are there, and maybe Rukmini Nandan Prabhu and Ganga Mataji. Also pranams to all devotees watching in the future, like Shachi Devi, Jayadev Prabhu, Krishna Rose, Ananda Pradayini, Damodar Prabhu, everybody else, Haribol. So we are continuing our reading of, well, actually, no, we're not continuing our reading of, well, we're continuing reading the Dāma-bandhana-nibandhanam book of my Gurudev, the appendix, which contains two chapters from Gopāla-campūḥ by Śrīla Jīva Gosvāmi, which describe, is it Krishna Bandha Nibandhana, no, Dāma-bandhana-nibandhanam Lila. Krishna being bound by a rope, and Yamala-arjuna-mocanam, the deliverance of the Yamala-arjuna trees, the twin Arjuna trees. And the reason why I wanted to read this today is because today, on this day of Deepavali, today is the day when this pastime took place of Krishna being bound by a rope. This whole Damodar Lila took place on this day. So I thought it'd be nice to read about it on the day it happens. So the chapter is a bit long. I'll probably go overtime today. But if you don't have time to, like if you aren't able to stay for the entire reading, this is all being streamed on YouTube. So you could always, leave early and watch the rest later. All right, so let's begin. Oh wait, actually no, we should start with singing Dāma-bandhana-nibandhanam. So Namamishwaram Sachidanandarupam Lasat Pundalam Gokule Prajamanam Yashodabhiyolukadladhavamanam Paramrishtamadhyam Tattva Goya Rudantamuhurnetra Yugmamrajanta Karam Pujayumena Satankanetra Muhushvasakampa Trirekhanka Kanta Stitagraibadamo taram bhakti baddham iti trik swalilabhi ananda kunde swaghosham nimajjantam akhyapayantam tadiyeshitargeshu bhaktarjitadvam puna prematasam shatabrittivante Varang deva moksha na moksha vadin va na chanya breneha varisharapiha idam teva purnata gopala bala sada me manasya virastam pimanya idam te mukham bhojam avyaktanilay Vritam kuntalai snigdha raktascha gopya Mohushchumbitam bimba raktadharane manasya virasam alam lakshalabhai Namo Devadamo Dharananta Vishnu Prasida Prabhu Dukha Jalabdi Magna Kripadrishti Vrishtyati Dinam Patano Grihane Shamam Agyam Edakshidrishyan Kuveratmajo Baddha Murtaiva Yadvat Tvaya Mochito Bhakti Bhajo Krito Cha Tatha Prema Bhakti Swakame Prayacha Namokshe Graho Mesti Damodareha Namaste Sudhamne Sfuradipti Dhamne Tadyodarayatha Vishwasadhamne Namo Radhikaya Tvadiyapriyaya Namo Nantalilaya Devaya Tuvyam Namo Radhikaya Tvadiyapriyaya Namo Radhikaya Tvadiya Priyaya Namo Natalilaya Devaya Tuya Namo Natalilaya Devaya Tuya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Damodara Radha Damodara Radha Damodara 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 Radha Damodara. Okay, what am I looking for now? Oh, let's open up this. Gopāla-campūḥ. Okay, let's skip to the end. Okay, here it is. Dāma-bandhana-nibandhanam, the determination to bind Sri Krishna with rope. And Yamala-arjuna-mocanam, the deliverance of the twin Arjuna trees. This is from chapter 8 of Śrī Gopāla-campūḥ by Śrīla Jīva Gosvāmipāda. Oh, and actually, before we read this, I just want to read this. This is the following account is an excerpt from the book Śrīla Bhakti-Pragyan Keshav Goswami, his life and teachings by Śrīla Gurudev. So he says, Śrīla Gurudev, he says, once during the month of Kartik, Śrīla Gurupāda Padma had brought his noble presents to Sri Keshavji Gaudiya Math. One day he was sitting in his bhajan kutir, chanting Harinam, absorbed in transcendental emotions. And this is our Gurudev Nitya Pravishya Shishimar Bhaktivedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj. So he said, I had sat down nearby, and was silently reading the chapter on Śrī Dāma-bandhana-nibandhanam from Śrī Gopāla-campūḥ. As I read, I became completely fascinated with Srila Jīva Goswami's beautiful description of this pastime. Finally, unable to restrain myself, I ran over to Srila Gurudev and said, Srila Jīva Goswami was a Mahapurush and an unrivaled philosopher. At the same time, he was a transcendental rasic poet whose work is eloquent, touching, and descriptive. Although such a combination of vast erudition and poetic artistry is rarely found in this world, when we read his narration of Śrī Dāma-bandhana-nibandhanam, we see the two unified in an astonishing manner. I began to read that description aloud. As I neared the end of the story, my Srila Gurudev suddenly began weeping. An incessant flow of tears cascaded down his cheeks, and other symptoms of spiritual ecstasy were clearly visible in his form. I have only seen such an expression of extraordinary spiritual emotions once or twice in my life. So now we're going to read that description that our Srila Gurudev, that whole description which our Srila Gurudev read to Param Gurudev, which caused him to feel these ecstatic emotions. So this is chapter 8 of Gopāla-campūḥ. On Haribol Ganga Mataji. Editor's note. Every morning before Sri Krishna takes the cows out to graze, an assembly of Vrajvasis gather together at Sri Nanda Baba's palace. For the pleasure of Sri Nanda Baba and his 4 brothers, as well as for Sri Krishna, Sri Balaram, and the other Vrajvasis, Snigdhakanta and Madhukanta narrate Krishna's pastimes. What these twin brothers narrated one day is about to be described. The next morning in that assembly, when all the Gopas who are part of the Vaishya community had gracefully taken their seats, Shri Snigdhakanta began. The month of Kartik was nearing conclusion. Early one morning, Shri Yashoda gladly beheld her sleeping little Gopal, whose eyes, now closed, resembled 2 blue lotus flowers. Mother Yashoda contentedly gazed upon her child and began to gently and lovingly stroke him with her hands, which are as soft as fresh budding leaves. When she noted with relief that he was again in deep sleep, she slowly and silently left his bedside. She entered the courtyard on her own, tied her cloth tightly around her, and started churning some yogurt to use in her home. Can you imagine all, oh wait, how come it's saying when all the Gopas who are part of the Vaishya community gracefully taken their seats? But I think all the Gopis were there as well. Yeah, because all the Vrajvasis are there when they speak. I don't know, it's interesting. Anyways, so I'm sure Yashoda was also here sitting and hearing this description of her own pastimes with Krishna. Okay. Today, on the affectionate and insistent invitation of Sri Nanda Maharaja's elder brother Sri Upananda, Sri Rohini Devi, accompanied by her son Baladev, mounted a magnificent chariot and went to his home. The maidservants were also coming and going while performing their different services. There was quite a lot to do because the month of Marga Shirsha, the topmost month of the year, was approaching, and the annual festival of Indra Puja, which is observed by the people in general, and which has long been celebrated in traditional culture, was at hand. Right? That's happening tomorrow, the Vrajvasis worshipping of Indra. When all the maidservants were thus engaged in their respective tasks, the queen of Vraj, Shri Yashoda, personally set to churning the yogurt with great care. To encourage her son's pleasant slumber, she sang sweetly as she churned. Absorbed in thoughts of Sri Krishna, with her mind and her soul fully offered to him. She sang the detailed descriptions of his childhood pastimes as her eyes admired his lovely face. Srila Shukadeva Goswami has mentioned this in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.9.2. One day, when all the maidservants were engaged in various tasks, Shri Yashoda, the wife of Shri Nanda, personally began to churn yogurt. At that time, songs about Shri Krishna's childhood pastimes came to her mind, and she began to sing them. So that was in Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? As dark-complexioned Vrajeshwari Shri Yashoda churned, her arms repeatedly moved back and forth. A series of girdles embeddled with jewels encircled her waistcloth, and beautiful bangles adorned her arms. Her ornaments sounded in time with the vigorous movement of her waists and arms. Meanwhile, her son drowsily opened his eyes. He opened his eyes a little. As Sri Vrajeshwari beheld the charm of his lotus face, she turned with greater intensity and sang, and I'm just going to make up a melody for this. Gokulapati kulatilakam tvam asiha krita sukrita vraja rachita vraj. Oh wow, everything is in, wait, sorry. Krita sukrita vraja rachita sukha vraja nayana nandi samniha Gokulapati kulatilakam tvam asiha. Anandodbhava janma mahotsava nandita gopa samaja putanika vritti nava mangala kriti valayita gokula raja. I'll read these first two verses. Oh my darling son, you are the crest ornament of the dynasty of Gokulpati. That's Srinanda Maharaj. The Vrajvasis must have performed great pious acts to witness you bringing joy to their hearts. Your activities delight the eyes of all. You rouse the joy of the cowherd community by the blissful festival of your birth. And by the recent and auspicious act of killing Putana, you have spread the glory of your father, the king of Gokul, far and wide. Dharya nivartanam shakata vivartanam anubhavena parita satrina vartaka vayu nivartaka parameshenanita. After eliminating Shakatasura, who made everyone lose all composure, you were blessed by the auspicious rituals of the Brahmins. Later, Sri Nanda's worshipful deity, Parameshwar, returned you to us after destroying Trinavarta along with his storm. Madhura prangana virachitaringana jala janayana supunya Nana kelishu nrita kalalishu darshita varanai punya. O lotus-eyed boy of incomparable piety, you used to crawl about on your tiny hands and knees in our charming courtyard. You have shown great expertise in playing various games and demonstrating many varieties of dance. Tarnaka baladhi shabalita tanvadi balayita manjula shobha jarati nivahe kotuka kalahe prabalita metyaloba. When you used to grab the tails of the calves, they would run away, dragging you along. At those times, your gorgeous form was pulled through the dust and cow dung, which gave you an even more enchanting splendor. While playfully quarreling with the elderly gopis, you would frivolously increase everyone's confusion through your antics. Mang mataram anusukam udvitano pratatam satatam Krishna. Drutam urare kuru tanuvre Drutam urare kuru tanuvredhem Purukhelavali Trita Trishna. O Krishna, since I am your mother, forever continue to expand my already boundless joy. Quickly grow healthy and strong, and fulfill our desire by delighting our eyes with your many lively pastimes. Tribhuvana darshana vismaya maharshana nishchita vaishnava maya Harivarivasya sukha Harivarivasya sukha Tattamasya vigata jara marakaya. At first, you caused bewilderment by displaying the three worlds within your mouth. Later, however, it was understood that by doing so, you confirmed the existence of Lord Vishnu's spiritual illusory potency, Vaishnavi Maya. And there's a footnote here. It says, even when Śrī Yashoda saw the universe within Śrī Krishna's mouth, she did not regard him with awe and respect. Instead, as is shown here, she simply attributed everything to the Lord's spiritual potency, which she considered had been evoked by her and Nanda Maharaja's sincere worship. O Krishna, may your body be free from aging and death, and may you become the bestower of bliss by serving Shri Hari. So she's praying that Krishna becomes a servant, bestower of bliss by serving Hari. Gokulapatna Gokulapati Kulatilakantam Asiha Gokulapati Kulatilakantam Asiha Gokulapati Kulatilakantam Asiha. Oh, my darling son, you are the crest ornament of the dynasty of Gokulpati, Sri Nanda Maharaj. Okay, so then as she was singing this to Sri Krishna, then Sri Krishna, the ocean of eternal charm, woke up and climbed down from the bed crying. As he stretched his body, he took long breaths and rubbed his sleepy eyes. Now fully awake, he cried, "Ma! Ma!" Hearing the sound of the churning rod, Śrī Gopāla tottered over to his mother. Śrī Krishna, the best of the blessed and the king of beauty, stopped the rod from turning. Śrī Yashoda's motherly affection for Śrī Krishna expanded within her heart, completely filling it with a desire to cradle him. And in her mood, there was a trace of fear and grief. As her motherly affection surged, she fed her young child the milk that spontaneously poured from her breasts in a stream. Mother Yashoda is gracious and splendorous like the rainy season. Her breasts began to shower streams of milk that resembled a continuous downpour, and Śrī Krishna, like a chatak bird, fittingly and gleefully began to drink that downpour. With great eagerness, Śrī Krishna drank the milk of that blessed breast. He had only half satisfied his hunger when Mother Yashoda noticed that the milk in the next room was boiling over. Although her child was eager for her breast milk, she immediately put him down, although it was apparently unwise of her to do so, and hastened inside to save the milk. She did not carry him as she ran, fearing that he might fall. Madhukanta interrupted. "Snigdhakanta, what are you saying, my brother? This is illogical. How could it be that Śrī Yashoda left her starving baby to go elsewhere? She is the faultless ideal among all loving mothers within this universe." Snigdhakanta laughed and said, "My dear elder brother, Just wait and listen to me attentively. In reality, her leaving her child to save the milk is also a lovely pastime of motherly affection. Oh, and Haribo Anari Krishna Prabhu. And I already said Pavatagni Master right now. Okay, so yeah. Her leaving her child to save the milk was also a lovely pastime of motherly affection. Madhukanta was skeptical. How? He asked. Then Snigdhakanta replied, in the absence of Sri Krishna, the residents of Vraj see that their bodies, homes, and other possessions are more or less waning. From the day he was born, his parents, Sri Nanda and Sri Yashoda, considered that all those residents of Vraj, as well as all the items used to serve Sri Krishna, have abundant mamata for him. We all know the word mamata, right? Mamata means mineness, possessiveness. They all have this abundant possessiveness. Krishna is mine. Even Sri Brahma confirms this in his prayers in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-33. So 35 said, O Sri Krishna, the residents of Vraj have completely offered their homes, their wealth, their relatives, their beloveds, their soul, their bodies, their children, their lives, and their minds. Everything at your feet. How, in all fairness, could you not award them as a result superior to what you awarded Putana and other demons? So you are in their debt, he's implying that. Haribo Mahivar Prabhu. Prabhu. What can be said of the love that Sri Krishna's own mother and father have for him, when Sri Brahma himself has glorified the love of the other Vrajvasis? All of the Vrajvasis' rich milk and yogurt, as well as their bodies, homes, and other possessions, are exclusively meant for the service of Sri Krishna. Thus, while serving Sri Krishna, it is befitting to have more mamata or attachment to the objects used to serve Sri Krishna than to Sri Krishna himself. Thus, it is specifically understood that Mother Yashoda's intention in leaving Krishna to save the milk was most exalted. This has been sanctioned in the scriptures that advocate bhakti. The import is that it is appropriate for Mother Yashoda to have more attachment for the objects that are dear to Sri Krishna than for Sri Krishna himself. Indeed, this is the eternal nature of an affectionate mother. Having concluded this, it is only fitting that Sri Yashoda first attends to those objects used in the service of Sri Krishna. At such times, she tolerates many personal inconveniences and remains unaware of her various household duties. With the loving mood born of her permanent emotion, her sthāyi bhav, that this is my son, she is always aware of Sri Krishna's needs more than her own bodily or household needs. She is always conscious of his complete dependence on her, and her perpetual attitude is, Sri Krishna's necessities are my necessities, and fulfilling them is my sole obligation. Only the residents of Vraj know what is involved in expressing this type of affection. Even when they chastise Sri Krishna and punish him, he knows that they are just taking care of him. This is because a parent's chastisement is considered part of loving and raising their children. There is no limit to what I can say about the boundless expression of their parental affection. And if the residents of Vraj feel angry with Krishna out of their affection for him, being the object of their extreme mamata, he is even prepared to undergo bondage. Just see, even fire in the form of lightning sometimes appears in dense rain clouds. And there's a footnote here, editor's footnote. Affection is part of the permanent emotion, as part of the sthāyi bhava of Vatsalya ras. And anger is a transitory emotion, a sanchari bhava of that ras. The superior's mood of Vatsalya ras is nourished by the transitory emotion of anger, and it is part of their affection. Just as rain clouds become charming when lightning appears in them, sometimes anger appears in those with Vatsalya ras, making their mood more charming. Actually, without anger, the mood of parenthood would not be complete. The evidence for the above statement is that Mother Yashoda and her son benefit each other by their mutual love. Listen as I describe their affectionate dealings. When Mother Yashoda went to take the milk off the stove for the pleasure of her son, she first comforted him by saying, "My darling son, may all your problems and difficulties come to me. Watch this pot of yogurt for just a minute while I check on the boiling milk. I will return quickly." Ah, just as swiftly as she put her son aside and left that charming place, she returned. Even in that time, milk poured from her breasts out of deep motherly affection, wetting her blouse. It poured so much that it made the floor slippery. Wow, that's a lot of milk coming from her breasts. Still, Sri Krishna's wishes had been checked, and he was most perturbed. In anger, he bit his trembling reddish lips and burst into tears. Then, taking up a small grinding stone that was lying nearby, he broke the pot of half-churned yogurt. However, he did not even get the slightest bit of butter from it. Poets have described his beauty at that time. So this is a quotation of the poets. He said, "Little Krishna's white teeth, a series of moons, were enveloped by the reddish hue reflecting from his lips. His two eyes, resembling restless partridges, were full of tears, and his lotus hands shone as they vigorously sloshed yogurt here and there. In this way, when the half-churned yogurt from the pot covered the entire floor, another type of festival manifested." Just then, his eyes caught sight of a pot of fresh butter hanging from the ceiling in the adjoining room. He ran to the door, slid the latch aside, and pushed it open. Then, moving the door stopper back into place, he slipped into the room and closed the door behind him. He used a nearby cot as a step, lowered the pot of butter, and started to eat it. Thereafter, he took the remaining butter and secretly sneaked out through the window of that room. Meanwhile, Mother Yashoda had stopped the milk from boiling over into the fire. The milk cooled down to a simmer within seconds, and she took it off the stove. She dashed back to where she had left her son, only to find he was gone. However, seeing evidence of her son's activities, she laughed and mixed anger and amusement. At first, out of suspicion, she became perturbed. But then Yogamaya manifested in an aerial voice, which gave her knowledge and made her laugh. The aerial voice said, "Feeling hungry and thirsty, your little bumblebee made a hole in the bud of a lotus flower that had no pollen. When he saw that it was merely water that began dripping from that flower, he became disappointed and went to another lotus flower, where he has found a big supply of honey. The import is that in order to get fresh butter, your son performed all these deeds. He first broke the churning pot, but did not find butter there. He then found it hanging in the next room. You displayed your intelligence by deciding to leave your baby. You have displayed your intelligence by deciding to leave your baby and go cool down the milk. But if you calm the anger of your child, you will receive even more praise." Upon hearing the aerial voice, Mother Yashoda laughed and followed the thief's conspicuous yogurt footprints to the next room. She managed to force the doors open. Then she stepped inside, only to behold her son's other matchless mischief. Tracing his path of escape, she finally spotted him, his eyes restless with fear. He was thinking, "I've just stolen fresh butter. If my mother sees me here, how will I face her?" His eyes moved about so frantically that they seemed to be on the verge of leaping onto his ears. And in other words, his eyes and ears were watching out for his mother. Mother Yashoda saw him sitting restless-eyed atop the grinding mortar that he had overturned with all his strength, feeding butter to the monkeys. Astonished by this, she smiled softly.
she quietly crept up behind her guilty son. It is said that a wealthy person has only 2 eyes, but a thief has 100. That is to say, a wealthy person only has 2 eyes to look after his treasures, but a thief has 100 to spot that person's wealth and steal it. Although a person may be extremely careful to protect his wealth, it is not inaccessible to the thief. By nature, monkeys are proud of exhibiting their strength, but today their fellies were fully satisfied. So when they saw Mother Yashoda advancing, holding a stick covered with cloth, they immediately scampered up the nearby trees. This alerted Krishna to what was happening, and he also fled. Seeing her sons fleeing, Mother Yashoda broke into a ran and began to chase him. A shower of flowers fell from her braid. "Oh, king of thieves," she loudly called, "where are you going? Stop, stop!" Hearing this, Sri Krishna uttered a faint cry, and a smile appeared on his face, enhancing his beauty. Mother Yashoda ran quickly after him. Although she came close, she could not catch him. It was as if 2 clouds, one big and one small, were being chased by the wind from west to east across the sky, the larger cloud unable to catch up with the smaller one. Similarly, this mother could not catch her son. And there's a footnote here. Editor's footnote. Here, Sri Yashoda and Sri Krishna are appropriately compared to clouds because both of their complexions are dark, like rain clouds. Srila Rupa Goswami explains that in Radha Krishna Ganadishtavika, how Mother Yashoda's complexion is like, Krishna's complexion is like Mother Yashoda's. Little Krishna was confident that his mother would never pursue him beyond the main gate, for she would then be seen running in public. Therefore, he intentionally ran in that direction. Mother Yashoda knew at that time of day no one would be outside of the gate, so she just kept chasing him. As long as Krishna ran without looking back, his mother was unable to catch him. But as soon as he turned his head back in fear, she caught him by his hands. He frantically moved his eyes about as if trying to continue running away with his eyes. He began crying in an attempt to reduce Mother Yashoda's anger, and out of impudence, he started trembling artificially. He's trying to get her sympathy by trembling artificially. But he did not give up his childish pranks. Whenever she forcefully held his face so that she could look at him in the eye, Krishna turned his face in such a way as to wipe the oily gloss of butter from his mouth and make it look dry. He's trying to rub away the evidence that he was eating butter. Threatening him, Mother Yashoda said, "Oh, Krishna, you have given me so much trouble. Before you steal from your home, first look at this stick in my hand." When she saw her lotus-eyed son's terror upon hearing these words, Shri Vrajeshwari tossed that stick aside. "Don't beat me, mother," Shri Krishna beseeched her. The Queen of Braj scorned him. "But you are a thief, a thief." Laughing to herself, she suddenly forcefully instigated a quarrel with him. "Ah, you are the king of thieves, Chor." Krishna protested. No, mother, Chor took birth in your dynasty, not mine." And there's a footnote here. In the dynasty of Shri Krishna's father, there was a Gopa named Chor Ghosh. The literal meaning of Chor is thief. Thus, Shri Krishna denounced Shri Yashoda's dynasty, considering himself to belong exclusively to his father's dynasty. So, no, mother, Chor took birth in your dynasty, not mine. Why would we have a Chor? Why would we have a thief in our home? In this way, Mother Yashoda and her butter-stealing son argued with each other. "Oh, really? Well, who broke the pot of yogurt?" she again inquired. Krishna replied, "The Supreme Lord, he was punishing you." "But," she continued, "who fed butter to the monkeys? He who created them?" "No," she exclaimed, "I suspect that you always feast with great relish on the fresh butter we prepare for use in religious sacrifices." Mother Yashoda scolded her son as she would a thief, but finally her heart softened. She laughed with anger and said, "Just admit your theft. Give up your arrogance." Thus pressed by his mother, Sri Krishna burst into tears. "Look, Ma," he sobbed. "When you anxiously rushed to save the milk, your ankle bell struck the pot of yogurt and it broke. How is this my fault?" "And the monkeys," he continued, "were inspired by the Supreme Lord to sneak into the house to steal. When they began taking the butter, I caught them. What did I do wrong?" "And then," he retorted, "the stick in your hands frightened me, so even though I'm completely innocent, I fled like a thief. You saw I was so afraid, but still, you mercilessly chased me, all for no reason." Mother Yashoda spoke as if lamenting. "Oh, you are the king of those skilled in argument," she said. "You are the best of thieves. Although you are the son of Sri Vrajraj, the most noble of men, your nature has become just like a monkey's because you are fond of them. Your nature has become just like a monkey's because you are fond of them." When fearful Sri Krishna heard this, he pointed to the forest and said, "If I am a monkey, then I will live in the forest," which slightly frightened his mother. Who knows, she thought, this arrogant boy could easily put his threat into action. To keep him running into the forest, I must tie him up. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for me to single-handedly manage my household duties and this child. Turning to Krishna, she openly said, "You thief, you restless boy, you who bewilder one and all by the charm of your flickering eyes, why don't you just simply accept my prohibitions? Look, I will tie you up and then quickly return to the house. If you have any strength left, you can show it to me by trying to steal something else." As she started to bind him, his eyes became moist, and in a fury he began to loudly cry out, "Oh, Mother Rohini!" He shrieked, "Where have you gone with my big brother? Because you are not here today, this mother is tying me up. Come quickly!" Since Sri Rohini was far away, she could not hear his cries. But the ladies from neighboring homes, who had previously complained about Krishna and who had chastised him, those gopis did hear his cries. They informed each other of the fun and assembled there. As if taunting her, they reminded Sri Yashoda of their complaints. "Has this thief done something mischievous in your home also?" they laughed. Mother Yashoda, however, was bent on teaching her son a lesson, so she paid no heed to their remarks. Snatching up a silk ribbon that had fallen from her braid, she immediately began binding her son's waist to a grinding mortar lying in the courtyard, with the same persistence it takes to bind the neck of a calf. But that silk ribbon was 2 fingers too short. She took another ribbon from her hair and joined it to the first one. But still, the same problem confronted her. Amazed, she then tried to bind Krishna's waist with several turning ropes that the gopis handed her. But still, Rajeshwari could not make up that gap of 2 fingers. From a distance, a cloud that is actually touching the peak of a mountain may be mistakenly perceived as being quite far beyond it. In a similar sense, although the full length of rope was actually touching Sri Krishna, it could not bind his apparently tiny waist. The rope was always 2 fingers too short. And then there's a footnote from the editors. Just as a cloud may appear to be far beyond the mountain's peak when seen from a distance, it appeared to everyone present that there was also so much rope being used to bind Sri Krishna that it could not possibly have been touching his waist. However, just as a cloud is actually touching the mountain, the full length of rope was actually touching Sri Krishna's waist. But no length of rope could equal the actual circumference of his waist, because, in truth, it is unlimited. Haribol Chatamaya Mataji. Observing this, the ladies of Raj laughed and remarked, "O Vrajeshwari, we already told you that this boy surely has come from we have already told you that this boy surely has some extraordinary illusory potency. On account of it, he even surpasses Kapala, the foremost among thieves. He seems to be satisfied simply by eating stolen goods, or by such acts, he delights both the donors of those goods and the enjoyers of them. He is gradually gaining quite a reputation as one who steals others' possessions." Mother Yashoda responded, "What does this recently born child know about being a thief? He does not know good from bad. It seems that you are the ones who know some evil trickery. Although you actually favor him, externally you behave in a contrary way." At this, the ladies laughed. "Oh, respected Shri Yashoda," they said, "we take an oath at your feet that we have nothing to do with these astonishing powers." Finally, Shri Yashoda reasoned. As Shri Gargacharya said, "Surely some potency of Shri Bhagavan surrounds my son. This infant boy cannot know what he is doing." Just to put an end to this bewilderment, Shri Yashoda repeatedly called for more and more churning ropes from the homes of those gopis. Despite her persistence in her endeavor to bind her son, she could not find any way to accomplish the seemingly impossible task. Instead, Shri Yashoda, the queen of Braj, dripped with perspiration, and curls of hair fell over her face again and again. Finally, she became completely exhausted. As long as Shri Krishna, who was born in the Yadu dynasty, stubbornly refused to be bound, Mother Yashoda's persistent efforts were fruitless, just as one whose fate is grasped by an unfavorable star is always unsuccessful in his endeavors. And there's a footnote here where it says Yadu dynasty. Srila Jīva Goswami has employed a simile by stating that Shri Krishna was born in the Yadu dynasty. Just as Yadu Maharaj stubbornly refused to accept the order of his father, Yayati Maharaj, similarly, Shri Krishna, who was born in that same Yadu dynasty, stubbornly refused to be bound by his mother. So as long as Krishna stubbornly refused to be bound, Mother Yashoda's persistent efforts were fruitless. Finally, Shri Krishna's heart was touched by the sight of his mother being so overwhelmed, and almost immediately, she successfully bound him with the 2 ribbons she had initially used from her hair. It was clear to all present that it was only these two ribbons that bound Shri Krishna. The other rope she had used to tie him simply lay there. It was actually Shri Krishna's maidservant, his Yoga Maya potency, who had understood his mind and had accomplished the task of binding him. This made Mother Yashoda feel that all those astonishing activities of Shri Krishna were an illusion. When that rope was finally tied tightly around Shri Krishna's waist, Mother Yashoda knotted it to another long rope, which she then tied around the middle of the grinding mortar. She had taught her son Krishna a lesson by tying him up, and thus showed him how unmoved she could be by his stubbornness. To protect him, she seated the other little boys around him, and happily went inside with the giggling gopis to complete her household chores. Within a moment of the Braj gopis' departure, Shri Krishna manifested his pastime of crying, but he soon cheered up at the thought of pulling the grinding mortar around. He was tied up, but because he was surrounded by other little boys, he stimulated their desire for adventure. As he laughed and played with them, he slowly began to tug at the grinding mortar. The gopis who had gleefully brought ropes from their homes to bind Shri Krishna were now in Nanda Bhavan with Shri Yashoda. This meant that their homes were empty. Seizing that excellent opportunity, Shri Krishna directed his friends to steal the fresh butter hanging from the ceilings of their deserted homes and then eat it. Because Shri Krishna found pulling the grinding mortar so entertaining, he never even wanted to free himself by his own hands, nor by the hands of his friends. Just then, his eyes fell on the twin Arjuna trees that stood facing the main gate, and which swayed as if dancing whenever there was a strong wind. As Shri Krishna pulled the mortar along, he eventually crawled towards the middle of the two trees. And I see it's now 8 o'clock. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this, I'm just mentioning again because many people have joined later on, but I'm going a bit overtime today, intentionally. But this is all being streamed on YouTube right now, so if you need to go now, you don't need to worry about missing the reading. You can watch the rest on YouTube. On Haribol Shubhananda Prabhu. Okay, so then just then his eyes fell on the twin Arjuna trees that stood facing the main gate, and which swayed as if dancing whenever there was a strong wind. As Shri Krishna pulled the mortar along, he eventually crawled towards the middle of the two trees. At this point, Snigdha, who had been loudly narrating all this with great excitement, suddenly realized, if I tell them that Sri Hari is the cause of the two trees falling, I will be glorifying his Aishwarya, his majestic opulence. That would not at all be appropriate in this assembly of Rajvasis, who are absorbed in Sri Hari's madhurya and his sweetness. I will conceal this fact and just tell them another reason why the trees fell. So he recounted. Just as Sri Krishna came between the trees, he became filled with eagerness to proceed further and quickly crawled between them. The passage between the trees was narrow, and as he crawled away, the mortar became stuck. Shri Krishna jerked and tugged at the mortar with the conscious intention of bringing the rope that bound him to it, breaking the rope that bound him to it. But instead, the two trees made a cracking sound as they were uprooted and came crashing to the ground, falling in opposite directions. The sound was so tumultuous that it made the Rajvasis feel more disoriented than deaf people, and it made their minds restless. Although Krishna had uprooted the twin Arjuna trees, which were more powerful than thunderbolts, amazingly, he was still unable to break the rope that embodied his mother's intense attachment and restless determination born of Vatsalya Prem. In this regard, poets praise Shri Krishna as follows. Shamanga dutti kinkini dvanidharam ringati ranga pradam karshachashvarudukalam karakarakara prakara pratam vispurja pratimarjana dvayakatat karajitat kotukat paryavritta nirikshanam vrajavadu lalyasya balam stuve. I adore the childhood mood, the Balya Bhav of Shri Krishna, who is nurtured by the ladies of Raj. He is gloriously situated in his childhood mood, in which his dark blue limbs are adorned by his tinkling ankle bells. He bestows the greatest bliss as he crawls on his knees and repeatedly pulls at the grinding mortar, which clatters as he drags it along. Excited by the thunderous cracking of the two falling Arjuna trees, he looks all around with his restless eyes. Terrified by that thunderous sound, all the inhabitants of Gokul fainted and remained unconscious for one danda. It's 24 minutes. Wow. Only the children who had gathered around Shri Krishna did not faint. Being immersed in the utmost sweetness of his pastimes, they, like figures in a painting, remain unaffected by fear. From a great distance, Shri Vrajaraj and other cowherd men heard that tumultuous sound they heard that tumultuous and terrifying sound. Fearing some calamity, they all rushed to the spot, speculating to each other along the way about what had happened. When they reached the spot, they became overcome with fear and doubt. "Oh, what could have uprooted these two trees?" they all cried. "There's no wind or rain, nor was there any lightning, nor has an elephant attacked them. Who has uprooted them?" Some remarked, "This is such a disaster, yet no one is here but us." "Well," reasoned another, "that is probably because the tumultuous sound of the crashing trees knocked everyone in Braj unconscious." Just then, they noticed their little Gopal near the trees. A playful smile beautifying his face as he tugged the grinding mortar, freely showering the bliss of his pastimes upon all. "What happened? What happened?" they asked as they surrounded him, discussing the cause of the disaster. Seeing his father approaching from behind, little Mukunda began to cry. Although Śrī Nanda Maharaj was still bewildered, he beamed a smile to pacify his darling child, and quickly untied him. Śrī Nanda Maharaj kissed the face of his son Sri Krishna, who spoke to Nanda Baba while crying, and although he knew why Krishna had been bound, he repeatedly asked, "Oh, my son, where is that wicked person who forcefully bound you to this grinding mortar?" Eventually, Krishna, who was devoted to his father, climbed into his lap, his arms around his father's neck, and his voice quivering. He slowly spoke into his ear, "Father, it was mother who bound me." When Shri Yashoda had heard the deafening crash, she fainted. After regaining consciousness, she pitifully began to repent. Śrī Nanda Maharaj came to know this, and therefore he did not want to immediately question her, even in private. He did not even bother to ask the little children present. What could these little infants possibly know about it, he wondered. But then the children spoke up. "Father, we saw everything ourselves. We clearly saw your son go between the trees. He saw that open space over there and wanted to play there. As he moved away from the trees, the grinding mortar became caught in between them. From an angle, he tugged at the grinding mortar. Immediately the trees made a loud cracking sound and came crashing to the ground. Two divine personalities adorned with armor, crowns, and earrings emerged from the trees, their stout figures as bright as fire. After circumambulating your Krishna and offering him obeisances, they said something to please him and then set off to the north." Śrī Nanda Maharaj and others, who were completely absorbed in parental affection for Krishna, discarded the boy's words as silly prattling. Others, however, were left doubtful. All the people of Braj came there in ones and twos, and gradually a large crowd gathered. Decorating his chest with his son, Shri Vrajraj went with all of them to the Yamuna to finish his morning activities. He bathed in the river with his son on his lap, and after dressing, he arranged for the Brahmins to chant the Swasti Vacha, specific mantras to invoke auspiciousness, in that very place. Afterwards, he donated great wealth to them. He then returned to his home, ready to take his breakfast. Shri Yashoda, the wife of Śrī Nanda Maharaj, felt so sad and embarrassed that she had bound Krishna that she refused to leave the inner chambers of the house. She could not even speak with the gopis who had come to see her. So after they had all left, the respected Shri Rohini, who was expert in reconciling all situations, directed the head kitchen maids, who are all held in high esteem, in serving the morning meal. Beckoning Shri Vasudev's son Shri Balaram and his own son Kanaya to join him, Shri Vrajraj ate with them in the midst of the endearing and indescribably sweet tumult they had made. He then rested for nearly an hour with the two brothers, who were the personifications of supreme bliss. Soon it was evening, the charming time when the cows returned from the fields. Having rested well, he felt happy and content. After coming to the Goshala, he directed the cowherds in milking the cows and caring for them. Since Shri Krishna and Balaram were quite young, they still needed their mother's breast milk, and cow's milk is the best representative of breast milk. Shri Vrajraj first asked for some excellent white rock candy to be brought to the house. After distributing it to them, and the other little boys like Subal, Nanda Baba began squirting nourishing cow's milk from the cow's udders directly into the brothers' mouths. Then, as they sat in the cowshed, he taught them how to make leaf cups and how to write letters on leaves. After some time, he returned home, and in a blissful gathering, he took his evening meal with the two boys. The wise elderly gopis, who adorned their respective dynasties like jewels, or goddesses of wealth, always desired Shri Vrajraj's happiness. Therefore, after he had finished his meal, they approached him along with Shri Rohini and said, "O king, Krishna's mother has not eaten anything all day, nor has she spoken with anyone. Seeing her condition, all the maids and other gopis have also been sitting silently, and they also have not eaten anything." Shri Vrajraj was both sorry and amused. "What can I do?" he asked. She herself can see the detrimental effect of submitting to her anger. At this, tears began streaming down the gopis' faces, and they sobbed, oh no, she is so soft, internally and externally. Hearing these painful words of yours, she will become even more aggrieved." Smiling, Shri Vrajraj asked his son, "My dear boy, do you want to go to your mother?" Shri Krishna promptly responded, "No, no, I will stay with you only." Giggling, the wife of Shri Vrajraj's elder brother, Shri Upananda, she questioned him, "If you are only ever with father, whose breast milk will you drink?" "I'll drink warm squirts of cow's milk mixed with rock candy," Krishna replied. "With whom will you play?" all the gopis asked. "I will play with father and my brother too," he answered. Shri Vrajraj then asked, "Why don't you go to your brother's mother, Rohini?" Tears welled up in Krishna's eyes, and he angrily said, "She was not there for me when I needed her." At this, tearful-eyed Shri Rohini spoke gently, "My dear son, why are you so harsh? Your mother is in so much anguish." Krishna pretended not to hear her words, and with moist eyes simply gazed at the face of his father. Upon the motioning of Shri Rohini, Balaram ran forward and seized Krishna's hands. Balaram ran forward and seized Krishna's hands to bring him to her. But he wrestled out of Balaram's grip and ran back to his father's lap and tightly hugged him. While on the lap of Vrajraj, he stood up and draped his arms around his father's neck. Krishna gazed into his eyes, which were now releasing a stream of tears, and absolutely captivated his father. Shri Vrajraj knew that really Krishna dearly loved his mother from the core of his heart. To unearth that inner love, he raised his hand and said, "If you tell me to, I will beat your mother." Shri Krishna could not tolerate this and tightly grabbed his father's arm with both hands. This made Nanda Baba laugh. Because he had the inherent Vatsalya bhav of being a father, he compassionately thought of the condition of Mother Yashoda's heart and said, "Son, what will you do if your mother adjusts?" In this statement, Sri Nanda Maharaj jokingly implied that the word that means the opposite of lives. Shri Krishna had the nature of a child. and therefore he became overwhelmed for want of his mother. With tear-filled eyes, he said, "Where is my mother? I am going to her." With this anxiety, he stumbled into Sri Rohini's arms, and a din arose as everyone began to laugh. Meanwhile, Sri Rohini, who bestows supreme joy upon all, entered into the house with teary-eyed Krishna, who joyously embraced his mother. Shri Yashoda let forth deep sighs that resembled the lowing of a cow. She rested her chin on her darling child's head and began to weep. Her crying, which was full of love, completely melted her heart. Upon seeing her condition, everyone there also began to weep. The elderly gopis consoled Shri Yashoda in various ways. Gradually, her heart began to feel relief, and the charm of her face began to reappear. Then Shri Yashoda, the daughter of Shri Sumukha Gopa, fed her darling son her breast milk to his great delight. After this, she took her meal with the wife of Shri Upananda and the other ladies, who were her greatest well-wishers. As she ate, she kept Shri Krishna and his elder brother Shri Balaram right beside her. Shri Yashoda felt so utterly ashamed for 3 days. She did not come before the eyes of Shri Vrajraj. Finally, Shri Bal Gopal, who always carries out his father's orders, personally brought her before him, pulling her by her upper cloth. Also, from that day onward, the ladies of Vraj jokingly and blissfully began calling Shri Krishna Damodar and remarking, "Ah, this is our same enchanting blue boy, Shri Shyam Manohar." Although Shri Yashoda repeatedly witnesses Shri Krishna's superhuman majesty, this majesty never even slightly affects her Vatsalya, her motherly affection for him. Which scholar on earth is really able to praise her? Shri Shukadev Goswami has even stated that, not to speak of others, Shri Brahma, Shri Shankar, and Shri Lakshmi have failed to achieve even 100 of the satisfaction and happiness of what Shri Balamukunda, he who bestows liberation, has awarded Shri Yashoda. In other words, from the perspective of bhakti, Shri Brahma, Shri Shankar, and Shri Lakshmi have failed to achieve even a small fraction of Shri Yashoda's bhakti. Shri Shukadev Goswami has thoroughly disclosed the splendorous fame of Shri Yashoda, which reverberates like a drum throughout the 3 worlds. The Srimad Bhagavatam 10:9-20 and other scriptures verify this. At this point, Shri Balaram turned to his younger brother, Shri Krishna, and excitedly remarked, "Do you remember when we used to live in Mahavan Gokul?" Shri Krishna smiled. Yes, we had such fun sporting there." Snigdhakanta then concluded the day's narration. "O king of the cowherders, your divine son is so amazing. He was even able to make twin Arjuna trees his dedicated devotees." The author, Srila Jīva Goswami, comments, as all the members of the assembly returned to their respective homes after hearing Sri Damodar Leela, they felt as if they had directly witnessed that festive pastime. The next day, while seated amidst that effulgent assembly, Shri Vrajraja asked, "My dear son, Snigdhakanta, those 2 trees in Vraj that you mentioned used to grant all of one's cherished desires. In that way, they were like demigods. Who were these trees in their previous births? And why did they come to Vraj? Moreover, when they gave up their lives as trees, what form did they take? And where did they go?" Snigdhakanta replied, "Those 2 trees were the sons of Shri Shiva's friend, Shri Kuvera, the king of the Yakshas. Once they behaved horrendously in front of the best of rishis, Devarshi Sri Narad. Consequently, he punished them to live as trees. This punishment was Sri Narad's extreme favor upon them, because they achieved bhakti for Sri Bhagavan. Whenever you descend to this world, they also come as twin Arjuna trees in front of your home in Mahavan. These trees later attained their ultimate destination and became the best of Sri Bhagavan's devotees. However, at present, they are illustriously situated in the abode of Premi Bhaktas, where they reveal to others the results of performing bhakti to Sri Bhagavan. They're indirectly referring to themselves. Where they reveal to others the results of performing bhakti to Sri Bhagavan. His curiosity aroused, Sri Vrajraj again inquired, "Tell me frankly, son, where are they at present?" At this moment, Snigdhakanta bowed his head and became silent. Then he started glancing at Madhukanta from the corners of his eyes. Shri Vrajraj pressed Snigdhakanta even further. "Why are you embarrassed to speak?" With great respect, Snigdhakanta replied, "O king, what more can we say? Your distinguished self can understand everything." Shri Vrajraj beamed. "It is true that your words will merely repeat what your silence is trying to say. By your virtuous disposition, certainly we have all understood your meaning. But still, we want you to satisfy us by telling it to us yourselves." Snigdhakanta said, "The twin trees are the sons of Kuvera. Nala Kuvar and Manigriv received the supreme destination of residing in Vraj in exchange for their insolence at the lotus feet of Devarshi Sri Narad, which are a shower of all types of bliss. Those two are none other than we, the two present before you." Hearing this, with mixed feelings of curiosity and pleasure, Shri Vrajraj and all others present began gazing at their faces and happily embraced them, as if meeting them for the first time. After hearing his brother's reply to Shri Vrajraj's inquiry, Madhukanta took the opportunity to begin that day's narration. And then the chapter continues on. Wow. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Sachinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai. Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai. Jai Shila Gurudev Ki Jai. Jai Shila Param Gurudev Ki Jai. Jai Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Saparsha Chigor Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopigan Ki Jai. Shri Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vandadevi Ki Jai. Jai Shri Krishna Balaram Ki Jai.
Jai Shri Yashoda Damodar ki Jai, Shri Nanda Nandan Rajraj Shri Krishna Chandra ki Jai. Say, Rajraj Nandan Krishna Chandra ki Jai. Jai Shri Harina, Jai Shri Dāma-bandhana Lila ki Jai. The Yamala-arjuna-mocanam ki Jai. Jai Shri Snigdha-kanta Madhukanta ki Jai. Śrī Gopāla-campūḥ ki Jai. Jai Shri Jīva Gosvāmipāda ki Jai. Jai Nanda Baba ki Jai. Yashoda Maya ki Jai. Jai Sarva Vrajavasi Gan ki Jai. Sarva Jai Shri Harinam Sanjai Shri Jai Shri Deepavali Titi ki Jai. Deepavali Mahamahotsav ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Samagata Gaur Jai Shri Damodar Vrat ki Jai. Urja Vrat ki Jai. Urjeshwari Raseshwari Shri Vishwabhanu Nandini Shrimati Radha Thakurani ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Padadevi Satyavatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams, dear devotees, Nri Hari Prabhu, Bhavatarani Mataji, Nitai Mukeshji, Champak Mataji, Chatamai Mataji, looks like Anadi Krishna left. Vidyalala Siddhi, Ganga Mataji, Mahi Bharat Prabhu, Dandavat pranams Prabhu, Shubhananda Prabhu, Raseshwari Mataji, Indira Mataji, and all the other devotees watching now. I don't know who else is there, maybe Rohini Nandan Prabhu, Pramila Didi, and also all the devotees watching in the future, like Shashi Devi, Jayadev Prabhu, Krishna Rose, Ananda Pradayani, Damodar Prabhu, and everybody else. Thank you so much for joining. Tomorrow is Anukut Mahamahotsav. We are leaving here at 5 o'clock in the morning for this Anukut festival. So I won't be able to read tomorrow morning. I'm guessing somebody will probably live stream it. I don't know. But yeah, all the devotees in Gopinath Bhavan, except for like the IGBT Parikrama, but all the other devotees, we're all traveling to doing a small Anukut festival. Yeah, so maybe I'll just read something short. I can only do a 30-minute reading, and then I can make my video go live at 7 a.m. Maybe I'll just read that article that Param Gurudev spoke about Anukut being actually the real Anukut is Festival of Harikatha. Yeah, so maybe I can read that, and I'll see you all day after tomorrow. All right, Haribol. Is there anything anybody wants to mention before I end the stream for today?
Just to thank you, Prabhu, for a beautifully done dramatic reading.
Isn't this pastime? It's nowhere.
They're magical.
Imagine, definitely, yes. It's yeah, something I look forward to reading every year. Yeah, so yeah, I would love to read Gopāla-campūḥ, the whole book. I'm not sure if there are any like really good translations of it though, but if there are any good translations of it, that has to be one of our readings. We have to read the whole book.
I'm motivated to read the rest of the book now.
Yeah, me too. All right. Thank you, everybody. And see you all day after tomorrow. And if maybe you'll see me today in the the restream. All right, here you go.
Haribo. Thank you,
Haribo.
Prabhu. Wonderful reading.
Haribo.
Dhanyavad.
Haribo.